Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of my podcast about living faith in secular culture. Today, I have a guest from Warsaw, Poland. Here with me, it's Tomek. I know him for some years. We got to meet in Steiger, and ever since have been doing different things together or meeting at for example, Slot Festival or even visiting each other. And yeah, it's cool to have you here.
Hey, hello everyone. Yeah, it's nice to be here as well, and thank you for the invitation. I hope we're gonna have some good time talking about life and how we go through it.
Yeah, my reason why I invited you to this podcast is basically that you are an artist. You do a lot of things. You are like an entrepreneur, and you have always been to me like a quite inspiration to do things really in a good way, in a high quality way. Also, and using all of your kind of different art styles to talk about Jesus, to share the gospel, and to really get this connection between the scene, the people, and Christianity in a way that is really uh, that is you're doing this in a really great way. That's why I invited you. So, do you want to share a little bit about? Maybe I always start with the background. Can you maybe share really shortly what background are you from? Like
Yes.
Christian
I mean,
background?
first of all, I probably would like to say thank you. Thank you for saying that it's been an inspiration for you what I've been doing, in different moments and different situations, and it's always nice to hear because sometimes it's funny that if you do things, uh, you sometimes lose perspective of how things are and stuff, and when you hear about that from others, it's always a good, it sets in a context. So sharing a bit about my background, I come from Poland. It's a beautiful country. It's right next to Germany. I grew up in Warsaw, and so there's been a moment in my life just when I started to study at Warsaw University of Technology, and I was studying architecture design. And there's been a moment in my life when I decided, okay, I just go my way and I wreck things up, or I go with God's way. And then it was 12 years ago when I decided to really step into God's way, not a religious way, but into God's ways. And so by that time, I was more focused on studying. Then after finishing studies, I started to be a freelancer in the area of design. And during that time, after a few years after I finished studying, I felt this kind of need. Okay, I want to do something more. Just earning money doesn't feel enough for me, and I would like to do something more that has some kind of impact, that does have something more to it than just satisfying my needs and existing here in this world. So I was searching. I was writing down ideas. I was creating um some kind of descriptions of projects and sharing that with people. And after a while of sharing that with people, I figured that not many people think the way I do. And but I felt, yeah, I want to do it this way. I want to do it this way, and I just need to search more for those who are into similar stuff. And then at some point, I found Steiger. I found Steiger through first time I went to Slot, and I went to Slot Festival, and I met some people there, and then I joined Steiger after a while. And so I've been a missionary for 5 years. And then after 5 years, I decided to take a break and step back. And so I got back to being self-employed, and now I'm running a company, a marketing agency, where I work with my business partner, and we do design, we do videos, we do digital marketing, and we do mm, yeah, graphic design. So and websites. We do a lot of websites also. so we do this kind of stuff. And yeah, I've been speaking more about the artistic background. I also compose music. I'm a music producer, and I've been involved. I was running a project of my own that was combining music and an exhibition, and it was called Wayout. The project was called Wayout, and it's been a combination of both. And the events we were having, it was during the day we had an exhibition somewhere, and then we were inviting people to a club and play music, and that was the way to connect with people and share the gospel with them. And now I'm musically I'm more focused on my own solo project that is it doesn't share directly the gospel, but it's about a Christian life, and it's about, you know, how does it look like to live a Christian life in a way. And yeah, so I think that's my background.
That already tells a lot of your story already. Yeah. um, maybe from the perspective of art, can you maybe explain a little bit more? What kind of projects did you do in the area of art, and what is your, maybe also what is your, let's say, focus or your motivation behind most of the art you do? What keeps you doing arts and music also and all this stuff?
I think the core motivation, I mean, the very beginning of creating things, it's something that is inside of us that I believe comes from God. Like, God is the ultimate creator, and He created us, and some of us are creative in a more artistic way as we understand it, in a common understanding of it. But some of us are creative in different other ways. Some are very creative accountants, and I think for example, I think creativity is something that we have. And so I think it's often, for me, it's often difficult to explain actually where does this need come from. There is a need that I discover. I cannot create this need. I can just discover this need. And because I can just discover this need, I'm discovering more and more with time, things that I feel, okay, I would like to do it. I feel it in my heart. I feel this kind of desire. Sometimes I believe this comes from God, the kind of inspiration, you know, that I could do this, and this is something that comes from Him. Some things that are coming from me. Some things come because of the circumstances that I'm in. Some things are an answer for a need that is around me. And I think it's different. I think the motivation is, for me, the motivation was sometimes that I want to create stuff. I want to express myself. And when I become a missionary, I think the key motivation was, okay, if I want to create stuff and I want to express myself, let's create and express and use that for the eternal purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this, maybe later on I can expand on this, but I think for me, after years of being involved with different projects, I think this approach to it, for me, it was the most natural. When I felt, I feel this desire to create things, I want to express myself, and I want to do it for God's purposes, for God's kingdom. And this is a motivation that I feel natural, is for me. But sometimes I was falling into a different way of being motivated. It was more on a task. It was more a task of, we gotta do this because that's what we gotta do, and then I just go for this because this is a task. And I think in some moments, you know, a task motivated motivation is more it keeps you in place, it keeps you stable. But sometimes when you lose heart and you just are driven by mind, and you lose heart and sometimes unfortunately the spirit, then I think it drives you in a place where you just fulfill tasks. And I think every one of us can fall into that place. But I think it's the key thing is to just guard your heart and follow what God tells us. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's about my motivation for doing
Yeah,
things.
yes, it sounds like there's this challenge, you know, like if you are just this kind of creative guy that is always just doing what comes to your mind, that then you will not get tasks done, or you will lose motivation because there's nothing, you don't have really something coming out of it. On the other hand, having like these tasks, or having this like a little bit more planned thing, it can also happen, especially I think if you have to live this in a mission that says we want to do this, and you always have to be kind of the one that pushes a little bit into a direction, it can be somehow frustrating because you can't express yourself so much anymore. Yeah, is it that? And yeah, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I think you that's a good summary, and I think that balance needs to be kept in a place where, yeah, we just need to keep the balance between those two, because both extremes are bad. One is just focused on myself, and the other one is somehow focused on just the task, which takes heart away, and also it can take a human approach to things. Like you start to sometimes treat people as, part of tools for the task or something like that, and that's another extreme. And I think this struggle between those and the balance is something that I see that, there was moments when I was able to keep the balance. There was moment when I felt on both sides. Yeah, I think that's part of life, keeping the balance.
Mm-hmm. It's a maybe we go directly in some even more. Yeah, let's go dig directly into something quite deep yet. uh, did you ever? Maybe the question I always like to ask is, especially one thing is. I have two questions. Let's start with one. Let's start with how did you think your personal faith, your personal connection to God changed over the years by maybe especially by meeting people that are not from the Christian background, and also maybe struggle with things yourself that you see in the Christian culture that you don't want to live anymore, or that you see difficult. How did your personal phase like involve, if you think back to the time when you maybe started with Steiger, or even before, when you made these plans for your life and for projects, how is the like this journey of your phase, how did it change? What is there any specific parts that you would say maybe 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, was you thought totally different about than now?
Yeah, I think one key thing, uh, I heard some time ago, years ago, I think I heard Mel Gibson, an American actor. I heard him say, what was his regret from the times when he was a young 20 years something actor. And he was successful since then, probably. I don't remember exactly, but he said that he regrets that he was so proud and he lacked humility. And I think, speaking of myself, I wouldn't say that I was in a way visibly proud, but in my heart, I think the more I walk with God, and the more I learn about myself, the more I learn about people and things that I do, projects and stuff. I think the key thing that I'm happy with, and the key thing I learn is some kind of humility, towards myself, towards my people, towards God, towards people, towards God, towards projects, ideas, life circumstances, and all that. And I think this there is something that, for me, I think that now it's something crucial, because that's how Jesus was. And I believe that's one of the things that he wanted to show us how to live, is to have a humble heart, and go through things, and with this kind of approach. So I think all the all the mistakes that I made, all the wrong decisions, all the good things, all the successes that I could name, all the things that I could name a success. I think the key lesson that I take out from it is this humble heart. There is things, that you walk. For example, I one of the really how do you call it, eye opening experiences was, when you're 20 something. I felt like this. I don't know if everyone feels like this, but of course I wanted to focus on God. Of course I wanted to be close to God and so on. But I have to admit that there was a lot of drive to fulfilling my ambitions. I had an
Mhm.
ambition to do this. I had an ambition to do that. And of course, if you put a lot of godly spices to it, it sounds very, very godly. And but sometimes it's difficult to have this pure motivation. I think there is this sense of being human. There's this desires of a human being that we have, and to fulfill our ambitions. And so I think there was a lot of it. And the key lesson from fulfilling my ambitions was often that I do a lot to achieve this special goal that I feel in my mind, that this is something that I need to achieve and that's so special. And there is this expectation of that it's going to be amazing. And of course you do it for God and for the kingdom and for people and so on. But then you get so tired. I went through that a few times. You get so tired, or maybe a lot of times. You get so tired on the way, on the process, and you achieve this, and you get so focused on achieving this goal that you sometimes lose things that are much more important than, I don't know, running this event, creating this exhibition, or making this music, and so on. And I think a lesson that I learned through achieving these things that I felt that were my ambitions, and that if I achieve this goal, I'm going to be somehow fulfilled, is that sometimes behind this another peak, there is another mountain, there is another peak and another peak, and you start to walk like this, and achieving those things. And at some points you realize, I guess that's not what it's all about. And I think there is this humility that comes with this kind of experience. And I wouldn't say that things that I did sometimes were wrong, and I would say it was good. Sometimes it was very fruitful, sometimes less. But I think sometimes I was just too focused on following my goals and my ambitions. And I think that one of the things is that humility is what I've learned from this.
Mhm. It's like it's like kind of you have your goals, you have your ambitions, which are important, kind of, because if you never set ambitions, then you never do anything, and on the other hand, let's say like this. But yeah, isn't it sometimes also a very good thing to always reflect on what and also think about what was my heart behind it, and what and also to change your attitude all the time, and also be very critical with your even with your own art, to be critical about what is it just about me, is it about God, or is it probably it's never just about me, and it's never just about God. In art, it's always a mixture of your heart and something that you want to say, some message, and it can only be a mixture all the time. But reflecting this, did it help you to do this in a way, or how do you do this now, like this reflection process?
I think with this kind of mm, sitting down and reflecting on this kind of stuff, I think there is always, every one of us comes from a different background. As you said, you like to ask about backgrounds, and every one of us comes with a different mindset and a different heart. And sometimes if you tell someone, um, for example, as you said, that we need to set ambitions, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't do everything. We would do nothing. And I think if you would come to me and try to motivate me to set goals, it would not be good for me because I'm already so driven to set goals. But for someone who is lazy, they need to set goals. And for someone who, I don't know, is very critical about their art and the stuff they do, if you tell them to be more critical about what they do, they will feel like, oh, I have to be more critical. But for someone who is so proud and doesn't see anyone around, then they need to be more humble and critical about what they do. And I think the key in this kind of stuff is to really try to get a real perspective. Often I was getting unrealistic perspective because I was listening to this sentence, to that person, to this teaching, to this, to this teacher or someone, and I think a lot of times, if we pull things and we just soak them in, it creates. I think there is a tendency to create some kind of mixture of things inside that are difficult to untangle. And when they're difficult to untangle, I think the key moment is to come to God and to really dig deep and spend time alone, spend time away. Even I often go for a few days to the mountains to spend time alone because I think that's something that charges my batteries. And I think this kind of moment of reflection, even every day in the morning or in the evening, I think it's a moment that makes us come to a place where we get more realistic perspective. And it's not that we run around things, ambitions, inputs from this or that and that. And I think it's very important to have that kind of perspective of being aware of where am I, what am I doing, why am I doing that, for what reasons are these reasons real, am I lying to myself, am I lying to people around, is that real? But on the other hand, overthinking things endlessly is not a good thing as well. So what I would say is that I need to assess where am I at, don't get stuck at this point, and then act.
Hmm. Cool. Um, let's maybe go back a little bit to the topic of this living faith in the secular culture. Do you maybe have some examples how you transcoded or used arts, or uh, like really specifically, how did you transcode the gospel message into your art, and how did that, maybe even how did that process go, but also how did the final show, for example, that you did in different parts look like, and how was this translation, and what did you think also in maybe even how the process went, how you had to interact with people maybe before or when your art was created, to really talk to some needs that people really have.
Yeah, I think when I was younger and I didn't have the experience that I have now, I think somehow in my mind, people that I couldn't imagine how people get to places, where they can work, where they can, I don't know, exhibit, they can play concerts and stuff. And so I think the process is such an important thing to really demystify it, that it's not something that it's that is, it's a process, as you're saying. And for me it's a step by step things. Like you start here, you make a step, and then something happens, you make a step. And then after years, you get to a place where, okay, I have managed to build something if I'm consistent with that. And I think for me, the process was, speaking of arts and how to, put my faith into it. When I was studying, um, on the way back home, I had a church. So there was a church there, and so often after classes, I went there to just sit down and pray for a while.
Mm.
And it was a Catholic church. I really liked the architecture. I was studying architecture design, so I really liked the architecture of the place. And so all around the Catholic churches in Poland, there is pictures of, as we call it, the way of the cross. I think in German it's Kreuzweg. And so there was these pictures around. So I was going there to just sit down and spend some time with God. And so I was often looking at these pictures, and I was, I don't know, somehow thinking about, what was on it or something like that, sometimes even subconsciously. And there was a moment when I figured that, I had a that kind of notebook where I was writing down ideas. And I wrote down an idea of, let's do an exhibition, let's create an exhibition where we show these pictures that are in every Catholic church in Poland. There are, thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of churches, in every city, every corner. And so let's create an exhibition that shows this way to the cross, but it shows it from a perspective of a normal man, from a regular person, and that this person goes through experiences that are similar to the ones that Christ had in the last hours of um of his life, but are going to the cross of this man, this normal man that we were depicting. He's going through similar experiences, and he's going to the cross. And then the cross, the power of the cross, and what Jesus did on the cross is the way out of this all difficult experiences that are before the cross. So for me, it was an idea that felt, hey, we could do it. There is a reference point. There is, this Kreuzweg, the way of the cross. I can somehow interpret every one of these pictures. I can, somehow work on the style. I can, work on the ideas. And so I did it. Like, I did it. I started to work on it. I started to describe it. And at some point, I was, asking people about it. And then when I went to Steiger, because they had so much experience in doing that kind of stuff, doing creative projects to share the gospel, they gave a totally different light on it. Before, it was more focused on, inspiring people to think about stuff and so on. And then I realized that if we're not doing it for real, if we're not doing it seriously, we're just inspiring, we're not sharing something really strong that can, influence people's lives, then it doesn't make sense to even do it. Of course, you can fall into extreme, but I think if you want to do it for real and you want to influence people, I think it's got to be done in a strong way. So then I learned something from them, and then I was running the project with Steiger. And so I created, the exhibition, there was different versions of it. But then I made one event, and then another, and then another, and there was, some invitations coming. And then we wrote music. I met some people to work. I invited some people to work with me. I had a manager. I had bandmates, and we put that all together, and it was like a snowball. That, people are joining, people are coming, and they say, "Hey, that's interesting. Let's do something together with it." And so it didn't all happen overnight, but it was just being aware of what possibilities and what circumstances are, and what possibilities I see, and just going after them, going after these possibilities, after people, and finding, ways to go to share all this, to exhibit or to play concerts. There was a lot of invitations, and I think invitations also don't come from just that people invite you, but it comes from the quality of what you do. It comes from prayer. It comes from having having heart in the right place. It comes from the way people perceive you and all that stuff, and contacts and things like this. So if you gather all this, it creates a snowball that at some point just somehow goes by itself. And I think if something doesn't go by itself, it usually means that by itself, I mean that you push it a little bit in the beginning, and then it somehow goes on. You don't have to put the same amount of effort on the way than you had to put in the front in the beginning. Then it means that you're going in a good direction. I mean, in human terms, of course. In God's terms, sometimes opposition is the sign of a good direction, but that's a totally different topic. But I think the process for me was this: just being aware of opportunities that come, using these opportunities in a good way, and making steps, sometimes stepping out, quite often, like a lot of times, stepping out comfort zone and doing things that I wouldn't usually thought that I'm aware of doing. I'm able to do another where I'm able to do, and just going with it. And I think consistency, stability, that's the keys that make it happen, not necessarily being fully skilled or being fully equipped in the beginning. I think we learn over time.
Mm-hmm. But it also means that you need to put in a lot of effort in the beginning to really create something, especially as artists, that is appealing to people. Like you're not just putting something out and say, okay, if it doesn't run, it maybe sometimes the thing why it's not running is because it's poorly done. Like.
Yeah,
so this is also something as I heard you also I saw you put so much different art styles into this whole Wayout thing. It was not just photographs or just this music. It was also like you had some talks about with artists or something like that. So there was a really good concept for it, and also artistically really well done concept. So I think this is also good to know for artists that if your art is really good and if it's really appealing, and I don't think it has to be always very high professional, but it has to talk to something that people can resonate with. Isn't that the point?
Yeah. I would even say that I think it's less important, and that's probably, I have to admit, something that I learned maybe quite late. But I think it's not necessarily about being professional. It's about moving people's emotions. And if something that you do touches people's emotions, then this will work. It doesn't have to be professional to do it. Often it should be, who should have quality level that doesn't make it look a little awkward or something. But I think it's often that a lot of people, including me, sometimes I was running after quality, but I was missing the point of the essence in it, the spirit in it sometimes. But sometimes I went the other way. I grabbed the essence, I grabbed the emotion, but the quality wasn't perfect. And it's interesting because, for example, I remember concerts, for example, that we played with Wayout, that were well done, well prepared, and everything worked well, but there was not the thing. There was something missing in it. But on the other hand, there was moments when there was a lot of things missing, but in terms of technicals and stuff like that. But there was this connection with the people, and I think sometimes it's so much about how God drives that, and what's our heart with God, and how do we prepare ourselves spiritually, and then other things that they come out of it.
Mm-hmm. That brings me already to the next questions concerning that. how do people receive the shows or the concept? Do you have talks, especially with people maybe that, I think in Poland it's more like people that are Christian but Catholic. It's not so much strong secular people like we have in Germany that don't believe in any God or something. But how do people receive it? Do you have some stories of people that you talked after a show to, and or maybe that you even still in contact with or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think wherever you go, the people are different. Every situation, every moment is different, and because we were not narrowed down to just one scene or one subculture or tribe or something, I think every place where you go was different. For example, there was uh, there was, for example, art festival where we had a chance to play, and there was, people coming and asking about it, and someone gave his life to Christ because they were touched by the art, or something like this. But there was, for example, moments, and that's something more predictable. But there was moments when we went to jail with the project, and it was an interesting situation because. One time we were in jail, there was a lot of people, a lot of prisoners that came, and I never remember what's the difference between jail and prison in English. But anyway, it was, people who did bad stuff and they went to prison or jail. And so there was a lot of them, and their reaction was good, and uh, there was a few people that asked something, but there was not much that happened that time. But on the other hand, there was a moment when we were in a different jail, and there was just a few people, just 5 people, and there was really good and deep conversations and prayers that we had after it. There was moments when we played somewhere and it was super awkward, nobody asked anything, and we felt horrible after the show. And there was moments when we got an invitation to a place where young mothers with children come to pick up uh, boxes for Easter with food, and so they
Okay.
were picking up supplies,
Yeah.
and I was like, God, why am I going there? Like, what's the point of it? What's this? What, why should I go there? And I felt, in my understanding, in my perception, it was not where I was supposed to go, because they don't need art. They need supplies. They need food. They need that kind of stuff. And I think that was uh, that was my. I think I didn't fully understand what I was doing at that time, because when I went there, it turned out, and I realized, and it showed me that it's so simple. Like, it's not about the art. Like, forget about the art. The art is just a tool to come into a place and speak to people. And I think if you have that kind of approach, it doesn't matter if you go to homeless shelter or you go to people where people pick up supplies for Easter or something like that. It doesn't matter if it's an artsy crowd or if it's just single mothers that are hungry. It can work. It can work everywhere. And at that time when we went to the single mothers, I spoke about why I did this exhibition and what does it mean for me. And there was this girl that I just sat down and I asked, "Hey, what do you think? Like, how was it?" And she opened her life and she shared about, how she went through different things and difficult things in her life. And it was surprising for me, because I felt like, wow, I just said a few things, I brought these pictures here, and she suddenly opens her heart and she really wants to receive Jesus, and she really wants to make a step to change her life. And probably before, uh, she hadn't had that opportunity. She hadn't had someone who would explain this in a way that would make her understand that. And in this moment, it was a fruit. I think that was what we were doing that for. It was the fruit, and that we can see that there is a point in what we're doing. So I think, yeah, I think that's how I see it.
Mhm. How would you encourage like young people that are artistic and maybe on the way to finding out and wanting to do some more with their art, with their music, with something like that? How would you encourage them in taking like next steps, or what are good ideas what you can do, especially maybe if you are having this kind of artistic mindset and maybe but you're not seeing a way to really use it, or don't have people that are going with you or something, what would you suggest people to do or encourage with?
Yeah, I think I would say don't try to do it alone, because if you do it alone, then it's so difficult to get the right perspective. It's so difficult to learn by your own mistakes, and try to do it somehow in a context of people around. But I think Steiger is a great place to learn about it and start out things with Steiger. And another thing is to be patient, to be consistent. Another thing is, I would say, one of a friend of mine who's a Steiger missionary, Philip Shorey from Minneapolis, from the States. He's a great composer. He's a great artist, and he wrote a book about killing your art. And basically, it's about that if you want your art to be fruitful, it's like with the story in the Bible, that the seed has to die before it bears fruit. And so I think I would say the same. And I would say the same, not because I feel so enlightened that I will, I will teach about it, but it's more about that I experienced how does it work when your art doesn't die first. And as I mentioned before, if my art didn't die in the first place, and die, I mean, is that I just strip it away of any ambitions. I strip it away of any, as much as possible, of anything that is only about my satisfying myself. And coming back to the beginning, I think there is this difficult balance between, okay, how to get rid of myself in this, but at the same time express myself. And I believe there is a balance that we can find in this. So I would say that killing your art and in just giving it away to God, and letting Him guide things, and letting Him decide about when to do, what to do, how to do it. And I think that's one of the keys to really step into a place where it's not about, having a place in the basement when you create some creative things, and they never leave this basement, or they never leave your drawer. And I think that's one of the things. But one thing is also that another things that I would say to encourage is that uh, you gotta start small. You gotta think about uh, small steps. You gotta do things. You don't have to. You can't always stay stuck in the basement and creating it, because it's never fully done. It's sometimes gonna be awkward. Sometimes when people react funny or stuff like that. Of course, you cannot be stuck in a place. You have to progress, but don't be stuck in never done mode. Never ready. Maybe it's more
Mhm.
precise. And and I think if you step out of your comfort zone once, twice, three times, four, then somehow things start to happen. The right people come into the right place. Things start to roll somehow. And I think if you do it, no matter what you do, if you play music, if you create arts, if you step out of your comfort zone, if you step out of the world, and reach out to people and stuff, it's gonna work. It's gonna work somehow. It's not gonna be always a global success, but somehow Sometimes it's gonna be something that is gonna, I don't know, inspire someone, influence someone. And of course there is this thing of assessment, like you need to figure out if it makes sense, if it's relevant. If it's not relevant, then it's not going to work. So I think reflection and just learning and all that, just go for it. It's not that difficult. Like, you learn over time, you do stuff, and you just run. You just gotta believe that it's gonna work and that you're good enough to make the first step. That's what I would say to encourage you. Just go for it.
Yeah, cool. Go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. It was really good conversation, and was really good to hear from you. Maybe do you have something else you really want to share with the audience? Otherwise,
Yeah, what I would like to share with the audience, I would like to say hello to my fiancée Camila. Gonna be surprised that I mentioned her here. And yeah, I said a lot of things that I feel really with my heart. I would say that I think in the end, I would say that it's so important to have the right motivations, and it's so important to have the right standards for everything, in terms of not only quality and all that stuff, but also just uh, uh, living a holy life, and living a life that is not compromised by, the small things that are pulling you back. And I think that this is something that sometimes in my life I was more focused on running things and doing things than on this aspect. And I have paid a price of just not focusing on this more. And I think that a relationship with God is that is a really strong relationship. That's the foundation for everything. Nothing else is the foundation for doing things in this area. Because if something else is a foundation, either ambitions or ideas or art or stuff like that, then it's gonna just fall apart. As the Bible says, like, what is built on a soft, sandy foundation or something, then it's gonna just fall apart. And we have to build on a rocky foundation, which is God's word, God's relationship with God, and God's commandments. And I think every day I learn more about how important that is, and every day I learn that yesterday I didn't fully understand that, but tomorrow I'm going to understand more of it, and hopefully I'm going to be building on a more solid foundation, and things that I build now are not going to fall apart if the storm comes. So I think that's the last word.
yeah, cool. Thank you very much. It was really good to have you on the podcast.